This is Right to Life Radio. And now, here's your host, John DeRoe.
We've got a ton on today's show. There's a ton to talk about regarding bills that Governor Newsom has signed, the statewide perspective on the life issue. But as always, as we do every first Saturday of the week, we like to try to bring the focus down to the local and to let you know about the direct ways in which we at Right to Life of Central California are making a difference in the lives of women and couples who are considering abortion by offering them alternatives to abortion and helping people to choose life. So we'll get to Gavin Newsom and his obnoxious...
You have to.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about that. But yeah, he's signing bad bills left and right. A couple really bad ones that have not been signed yet, so we'll see. But joining me to talk about what we're doing on the ground, boots on the ground, is Linda Teliha from Right to Life of Central California, our outreach center main sidewalk advocate. So welcome again to Right to Life Radio, Linda.
Human.
Yeah, our main gal. Yeah. So Linda, for our Stories for the Sidewalk segment, she always has, we at Right to Life are out there at 40 Days at our outreach center, our building next to Planned Parenthood, where we interact with women and couples going in and out of Planned Parenthood. And we just started 40 Days for Life, so we're having a little bit of an expanded presence. Yeah. We're kind of going to make, I think, the spring 40 Days for Life a little bit bigger, because fall 40 Days for Life is... it's a little challenging between, we got our booth at the Fresno Fair. By the way, come join us at the Commerce Building at the Big Fresno Fair. If you're listening to this, say hello to our volunteers, give them a hug, give them a donation, whatever. So Linda, tell us about what's been happening at the sidewalk. You've got a couple of really good stories, including a pair of twins who maybe we had a good influence on their mom's decision. So tell us about that.
Well, first, I kind of had to chuckle when you were talking about we have a lot to talk about, and I was thinking, between the two of us, is there ever a time or day when we don't have a lot to talk about?
That's true.
So anyway, I do have a lot to talk about because we've had 10 moms choose life since June.
Yeah, which is amazing.
That's the only way you can say it. Amazing in every sense of the word.
If you want to donate to keep that happening, rtlcc.org. Or just go to the Christmas auction. You can learn more about the Christmas auction there.
Yep. Anyway, and we actually have a baby shower coming up in 2 weeks.
Wonderful.
And we'll have an Amazon link for that. So if you feel so inclined, that would be awesome. Mm-hmm. They're all very needy. Anyway, so to get to the story, with all that's been going on, I felt like I was kind of on a roll where I would talk to someone outside of Planned Parenthood and they would just come in. We would just...
Come into our building.
Well, come into our building, because usually I'll talk for a few seconds, and then I'll ask them to come into the outreach building, and that's where we'll get down and dirty about what's going on, like what's making you think you have to have an abortion. So I felt like I was kind of on a roll, and I met this mom outside of Planned Parenthood, and she was visibly pregnant. And this is the second time this has happened where I've talked to someone who was visibly pregnant. So obviously later in her pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And we talked, and she just kept saying, I really appreciate you. Mm-hmm. I appreciate what you're talking about. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so she turned around, she went into Planned Parenthood, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? So, which
is the wrong thought.
Makes sense, doesn't it's what you think because...
Well, sure, yeah.
How did I not get the message through? So I went to the building and I cried. I was like, what am I doing out here? Like, I'm not doing this. So I just should just stay in here because I'm not doing anything. And I thought, well, wait, you're not a quitter. What do you mean stay in here? Who are you going to help if you stay in here?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So I dragged myself back out there and started talking to different people. And we kind of figured out that there is an actual abortion day. I don't know whether I should say it on air or
probably not. I mean, there's probably
many days.
There's probably many days, but
this one seems very apparent.
Yeah,
because it's just everyone I talk to.
Yeah, well, it is a thing. Certainly, any abortion clinic that's distributing the abortion pill is probably doing them every day. Mm-hmm. But on days when you actually when you're doing surgical abortions, you need a physical provider to be there. And so that's probably only certain days when that can happen. So I think we'll keep that to our volunteers and people who interact with us rather than publicly on the radio.
And it changes.
But still, and I'm sure it changes.
It just seems like we're kind of have one day down.
Yeah.
So anyway, so a lot of that was going on where there were a couple of guys that these are always my hardest.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who don't want their girls to have an abortion.
Who don't want their girls to have a baby, rather. Yeah.
Yeah.
The guys want the abortion.
They don't want their partner to have an abortion.
Oh, so these are supportive guys.
Yes.
Okay.
And in fact, in between, there was this one situation where this woman was puking in the bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Like she'd obviously taken the pill or was just so upset. And he's patting her on the back and rubbing her back and holding her hair. And I said, dude, let us help.
Yeah.
Like you're obviously care about her, but what are you going to do? That's your baby.
Yeah.
And I just sort of was kind of pushing him.
Mm-hmm.
She goes in the building and he just looked at me and he goes, by the way, I want that baby. And I'm like, well, let us
help.
Get her out and we'll do our thing. But anyway, so that happened. Okay. And so it was just getting worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, like 2 hours later, out pops the mom that I was talking to. And
the same visibly pregnant woman.
Yes. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And she goes, hey, girl, guess what? We're having twins.
Hey, there we go.
I'm keeping these twins. So let's get over to your building and let's talk about the resources you have and let's get this going. Because I knew the whole day that God was speaking to me. And I finally got the message.
Wow.
Basically.
Well, yeah. Well, and that is the thing. I mean, if Planned Parenthood's going to do an abortion, they kind of have to do an ultrasound.
Yeah, and they did, yeah.
And they can't, refuse to show it to the person if the person wants to see it. Yeah. And, ultrasounds are really good these days. And, just the reality of a kiddo moving around with a beating heart and,
I don't know what it was. She's like, I don't know why two made it. It just mattered more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It worked.
Yeah.
I mean, she just said, look, when you were talking to me, you were talking about how I was taking my time to get in there. And she goes, and honestly, I was taking my time to get here. I was late getting here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just talked about what God's plan was. And clearly.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, the thing that was underlying the decision to start the outreach program in the first place, beyond, the obvious help, but Planned Parenthood themselves has stated in testimony before the California State Legislature that their no-show rates increase drastically whenever there are pro-life protests, whatever you want to call them, pro-life people outside on the sidewalk. So the very fact of just showing up and being there, whether you have the perfect combo of words or whatever, I mean, it makes her slow to start. It makes her slow to get there. It makes her slow to go in. It makes her and then to see someone who's offering something, you're just providing that extra, that extra opportunity for them to change their mind.
Yeah, it really makes me think of the footprints verse. Yes, I was carrying you. You knew.
Yeah. Well, that's not I don't know if that's an actual Bible verse. I think that's like a Hallmark card thing. but still.
I think. Yeah. Oh, one of us needs to know. When we come back.
All right. When we come back, we'll end the commercial break.
Quickly get to
where were your footsteps? That was when I was carrying you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Hallmark card thing. But still, it's a nice sentiment just because it's not in the Bible.
I mean, maybe it was based on a verse. Let's put it that way.
All right. We'll do that. So you talked with her. You're offering her resources.
Yes.
And obviously we.
Yeah, I mean, she was all in. Yeah. She's got a really hard situation, and I've really been trying to work on making sure that we can meet whatever need she has. Mm-hmm. She has a couple kids. She lives with her mother. Her mother she wanted her to have an abortion. She's like, you got to get this over with. Yeah.
Well, in our next newsletter, we're trying to do sort of highlight different stories from our Obria clinic. Mm-hmm. And the story that we're going to publish for this next one, very much like that. It's a mother who did not want her kid to continue with the pregnancy, And it's a difficult thing because because very often we need to try to, whatever their situation is, I think one of the most important things you do is sort of equip them to think, what are your resources that are available to you? What are the resources? Often it's the parents, but sometimes it's not. And to be able, that's a big challenge, I think, to try to get resources available. All right, we'll be back with more stories from the sidewalk. We're with Right to Life of Central California's Linda Teliha. We'll be back with more stories about the ways in which we at Right to Life of Central California are helping to save lives and help those who are trying to have their children. That is next on Right to Life Radio. We're back with Right to Life Radio. We're joined again, as we are every first Saturday, by Linda Teliha, who's our sidewalk advocate with Right to Life of Central California. By the way, if you support our work at Right to Life, as Linda said, since June of this year, 10 different women we've interacted with on the sidewalk have decided to choose life for their babies. If you want to support all that, go to rtlcc.org and you can get information about sponsoring our Christmas dinner and auction, which is coming up this Friday, December 1st at the Valdez Hall. It's our biggest annual fundraiser every year. If you want to sponsor, if you want to buy a table, go to rtlcc.org and you can get information about it right there. So, all right, Linda, in the last 5 minutes we have here, you've had a couple of stories. You had one mom who was pregnant with twins who chose life. But you've got a couple of other stories, so let's hear them.
All righty. So the next story is this. We had a mom come up to the Knights. We have a day when a group of the Knights of Columbus come out, and she was asking questions, and they were pointing towards me for her to talk to me. So I walked up and I said, "What's going on? And are you pregnant?" And yes. Do you want to come talk? So she came in and we talked in the outreach building. And she is a little overwhelmed because she already has 4 boys.
That's a lot of boys. I only have 2 boys, and that's a lot of boys.
Yeah. I only have 4 girls, and I would not want the flip.
Yeah.
And anyway, so she said, "I know it's not right, and I believe in God, but how am I supposed to do this?" And I said, "Well, we can help you." And basically, what are you thinking? And she just started talking about what she was thinking about. And sometimes that's really all it takes is having a sounding board.
Yeah, talking the problem out loud as opposed to just keeping the problem.
Weighing and measuring. Yeah. What does this mean? What does it really mean? And, talking about, okay, well, you've already had 4 kids, so you know what it means.
Right.
You don't have to be afraid of that, or you might be.
Yeah.
But,
but it's not a total unknown. It's something comprehensible and something you can think through. Yeah.
And in fact, she was talking again about, God leading her to choose life and, being open to his words. And I said, well, the job that I do, I feel like I'm called to do it. And a lot of times the words that come out of my mouth, 90% of the time, are they're just words. And I know they come from God. And I'm just trying to address your situation, because one of the things she talked about when I sat her down, I gave her a list of places where she could choose adoption. And at a certain point she said, that was a little bit of a put off. And I said, I can understand that, but I think that we're on the same page with, listening to God's words. And part of that for me is to just speak the truth, speak what I know, and give you the resources that I know.
Everything I have available.
Yeah. And it's not personal. Yeah. I don't know you. I don't know what your circumstances are, and I don't know what you can handle, but I do know that people who give their children up for adoption are heroes. And we don't talk about that enough.
We really don't. And your stories highlight sort of 2 thoughts for me in the last few minutes here. One is, I think a lot of people have this conception that abortion is pretty much exclusively the domain of a 19-year-old with their first kid. And for so many of these, and the statistics back this up, that this is actually a very large percentage, it's women who already have 2 or 3. And it's not because they want to have an abortion. It's they feel overwhelmed and that they
Mm-hmm.
don't have the financial or, partner support
Right.
that they need. And so what charity is it to offer them an abortion? You're not addressing the actual root
No.
problem, the actual problems they're struggling with. You're not
Right.
helping them with that at all. So what kind of charity is that?
And she knows how to navigate the system.
Mhm.
So, she has a lot of help
Mhm.
and she's able to do it. And she said, my children changed my life. They gave me a reason for living,
Mhm.
and she definitely, we talked about whether she has any, addictions or habits or whatever. She's like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't whatever.
Mhm.
And then ultimately the thing that I heard that I think people would like to hear the most is that her partner was driving down the road and he saw her sign which said, you can have your baby in your dream too. And he came home and he said, hey, I saw this sign. You can.
Yeah.
Honey, do this.
Which is unbelievable. So again, just one person having a sign out there actually made this profound difference in the life of this child who will now live in the life of this family. So anyway, it's thank you, Linda, for sharing with us.
Sure.
When we return, we'll be back with Jonathan Keller from California Family Council. We'll go from the local to the statewide and look at what's happening with California legislation. That's next on Right to Life Radio. We're back with Right to Life Radio, and thanks to Linda Teliha for stories from the sidewalk. If any of you want to participate in Right to Life Central California's booth at the big Fresno Fair, or come see us at the Diocese of Fresno Religious Ed Congress, which is going on right now as I speak, in fact, please do. I'm joined now for the last half of the show with our normal co-host, California Family Council's own, Mr. Jonathan Keller. How you doing, Jonathan?
Hey, that's me.
All right.
I'm good. I'm just kind of on pins and needles waiting to see what our illustrious governor does between now and the bill signing deadline.
Yeah. So we are in an interesting point in the legislative calendar. We have kind of a packed show today because we had our stories from the sidewalk with Linda, but there was a lot of stuff that's been happening with California abortion legislation. The California legislature has a lot of kind of strict deadlines they have to meet over the course of the year. They have to introduce all their new bills for the year from basically January through sometime in mid-February. Then they got to get it out of their house of origin by this date and go to the other house and all the committee hearings. Everything has deadlines. And everything, the legislature had to pass all the bills they were going to pass for the year by September 15th. That was their deadline. At midnight on September 16th, everyone lifts their hands up and they're done. The governor then had 1 month to sign or veto all the bills that the legislature had passed for the year. So he has until October 14th. And right now, this broadcast today is October 7th. So the governor has 1 more week to sign or veto all the bills that the legislature has passed over the course of the year. Now, back on September 27th, Governor Newsom signed a whole slew of abortion-related bills. But he left 2 of, I think, the worst bills, 2 of the 3 worst bills off. So he signed one of the worst bills, and these bills had the 12 or so bills that he did sign. They had dealt with abortion in all kinds of different ways. Some of them are terrible. One of them, for example, SB 487, if you're a doctor and you get either a civil judgment against you or a criminal conviction against you or a disciplinary ruling against you in some other state like Texas because you're doing abortions illegally, well, none of that can be held against you in California, including insurance companies. They can't refuse to work with you or provide reimbursements, whatever. Medi-Cal won't refuse to work with you because you have an adverse, civil judgment, criminal judgment, or disciplinary judgment in another state if it has to do with abortion. So it's all these ways in which California is basically saying other states are outlawing abortion. We are not participating in that at all. We're not going to recognize that as valid, legitimate in any way, shape, or form, even if it does involve real questions of patient quality. If you're a doctor who's so sleazy that you're going to do illegal procedures in other states and then try and flee to California, that should probably be held against you. The insurance companies should have legitimately the option to say, you know what, this guy's kind of a loose cannon. If he's going to do illegal stuff in that state, what's to say he's not going to do illegal stuff in our state, in California? So there's a lot of stuff like that. The three worst bills, though, in my opinion, were as follows. One is SB 345, which Governor Newsom did sign into law, and this has to do with the abortion pill. So this bill, in this vein of insulating people in California from other states' laws restricting abortion.
Insulating law-breaking criminals in California from other states' laws.
Right.
Just to put this in clarity.
So here's what's happening. A bunch of states have outlawed abortion. However, what a bunch of pro-abortion people are doing are trying to set up networks for women in those states where abortion is illegal to order and have shipped to them abortion pills. Now, getting the abortion pill without an in-person doctor visit, without a prescription, without an ultrasound, without necessarily having an ultrasound to confirm pregnancy, is very dicey. It's dicey in a lot of ways. You don't have an ultrasound to confirm pregnancy, so you don't know how far along you are. You don't have an ultrasound to see if you're experiencing an ectopic pregnancy. There's a lot of health risks with that. So basically, the pro-abortion side is setting up these different networks, these ways for providing abortion pills to people in other states. We talked about that actually last week. Dr. Meg Autry from UCSF Fresno. She was this was one of her big things, was promoting these kinds of networks. So now here's the thing. Providing someone with abortion pills, let's take a state like Texas, okay? That's illegal to do in Texas. What SB 345 does is it says California is not going to do anything to participate with Texas law enforcement if the people shipping the abortion pills are in California. That's basically what they're saying. And so they're setting up these big companies, entities, to ship abortion pills all throughout the country in California. And SB 345 is going to protect them. It's going to protect this company that's going to ship at $120 a pop abortion pills to women in states where abortion is illegal without a prescription, without a doctor, an in-person doctor visit, against the law. And basically, they're going to say, well, bounty hunters are not allowed to come to California to arrest these people who are doing these things. California law enforcement is not allowed to participate in arresting these people. These people are going to be able, basically, they're trying to facilitate abortion all over the country, even in states where it's illegal, with no legal repercussions, with the state of California basically protecting them.
So, John, I want to ask a question about this. And I can't remember if I mentioned this. I know I've mentioned this on a show before, but I can't remember if I mentioned it on our show before.
Or something else.
This show or something else. I've done a lot of interviews the last couple weeks.
It must be nice.
But
humble brag.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't have a daily radio show like so some
many
people.
I've just been interviewed by so many people who want my opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
I do wonder, though, what the reaction might be in Sacramento and by Governor Newsom if Governor Greg Abbott in Texas and the Texas legislature said, hey, you know what? We think that people all across this country, but especially people in blue states, they have a very clearly enumerated federal constitutional right to firearms. And we think that, the California legislature is infringing on that right by requiring, I'll just say this for everybody if you don't know, there's a requirement in the state of California. If you want to buy a handgun in the state of California, the only way that you can buy a handgun in the state of California, it literally is it's not a blacklist, like, oh, here's a couple of guns that we don't like and we're going to ban these.
Right.
It's literally what they call, in like programming terms, a white list. There is a
You're
list.
only allowed to buy these.
You literally go to the California.
Most handguns that are sold in the other 49 states are illegal in California.
Yes, exactly. So
because of
literally,
the capacity of their magazines or whatever it is.
you literally go to the website oag.ca.gov/firearms, and under the California Department of Justice, led by our illustrious Attorney General Rob Bonta, there is a roster. There's literally a PDF that they have up there that says, all right, these are the ones that we're going to deign to let you purchase.
Right. So the question, so basically, what if Texas set up something saying you cannot
firearms.
California's not going to be able to legally touch people in Texas who are shipping firearms across state lines into California
because we think that that's not
guns
fair.
that are illegal to own in California.
We're just going to go ahead and ship these guns to you through the mail, and we're going to say you in California can get any of these guns, and there's no paper trail. We're not going to say how you got it or anything else like that, and California, I think, would justifiably freak out. And if Texas turned around and said, hey, sorry.
Well, it's a completely, the comparison completely doesn't work, Jonathan, because guns don't always take innocent lives, whereas abortion pills almost always do.
Exactly.
So anyway, so that's SB 345. That was maybe, I think that might be the worst bill that's been signed because it is California attempting to keep abortion accessible for the whole country. And it's one of my theories of you scratch the pro-abortion side a little bit and behind the altruistic, pay-ins to women's autonomy and stuff like that, you'll find a bunch of people making a whole bunch of money. Every order, some cash, $120 a pop. And one of the things they're banking on is the idea that a lot of these states don't want to prosecute women who are themselves having abortions. A lot of these states are trying to focus their criminal prosecutorial efforts on doctors performing abortions, et cetera. So if you've got women ordering the abortions illegally, having the abortion illegally, and the state's basically saying, well, we're not going to prosecute the women, then basically they found a loophole of allowing abortion just to happen with no check, with no criminal check on it. So I think that SB 345 is maybe one of the worst bills. But there are two bills that have not yet been signed by Governor Newsom. Were not signed on September 27th, his big day where he was signing all these bills. Two bills have not been signed. One is AB 1432. AB 1432 would require group health insurance plans in California to cover abortion. So right now, since August of 2014, California has required that every insurance plan sold in the state has to cover elective abortion. And in fact, they basically eliminated the category of elective abortion from California legal vocabulary. All abortions are deemed medically necessary. There's no such thing as an elective versus a necessary abortion. All abortions are deemed necessary. The only exception to that had been companies that self-insure. So if you're a large enough entity that you can self-insure, you didn't have to have abortion in your plan. This would close that loophole, and this would guarantee that literally every insurance plan in the whole state of California has to cover abortion. So that would be a huge bad thing, but it has not yet been signed by Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
So I don't know what this is. Is this Newsom wanting to avoid litigation with, for example, the Catholic Church?
So I think, John, this is, I could be wrong, but this may be because he does not want to personally get slapped down. Because if we remember a couple of years ago, there was the big deal where we had multiple churches that sued the state of California over the fact that they were being required to provide abortion coverage in their plan. And I think it was churches like Skyline Church, formerly led by Pastor Jim Garlow down in the San Diego area, and Calvary Chapel Chino Hills led by Pastor Jack Hibbs. And there was a great victory. I think we talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
But all the way back, Skyline Wesleyan Church versus California Department of Managed Healthcare. This was from May of this year. And it was revolving lawsuits brought by four churches, two federal courts in resolving lawsuits brought by four churches, two federal courts in California have ruled that the First Amendment protects the church's right to decline elective abortion coverage in their health insurance plans. Given the court's ruling in these multi-year lawsuits, state officials have agreed to pay $1.4 million towards the church's attorney's fees.
Okay, so churches don't have to include it.
But that makes me wonder, is Newsom thinking, all right,
if I do this
there's this bad precedent.
Yeah.
And if I do this, like you said, is Catholic Charities, even though they are not officially a religion, a church.
Yeah,
or
like a
if it's
parachurch organization or something.
Or
yeah,
if it's
yeah,
a group like us, California Family Council, or I don't know, Christian Adoption Agency, or Hume Lake Christian Camp here in Fresno area.
Or even, I mean, a Catholic diocese isn't just churches. It's got a lot of school.
That's
probably
true.
Most of their employees are school employees.
Yeah.
So that's another one. You know what? We'll go into the next segment, I think. So we're talking about the main bills, the main bad bills that we are monitoring this year. And some of the bills that have yet to be signed, including one about Medi-Cal reimbursement for the abortion pill. This is really interesting. You're not going to want to miss it. This is Right to Life Radio, right here on Power Talk. We're back with Right to Life Radio. We are going through some of the worst bills that have been passed by the state legislature regarding abortion this year, two of which have not yet been signed by Governor Newsom. We talked about SB 345, which is going to facilitate basically companies in California shipping abortion pills to women in states where abortion is illegal so that they can have abortions there and avoid criminal law enforcement actions in California from other states. So California law enforcement's not going to comply with what other states are requesting, not going to cooperate with other states' criminal investigations into California entities providing abortion through the mail. We also talked about AB 1432, which Governor Newsom has not yet signed, which would require group health insurance plans in California to cover abortion. And now I want to talk about this one that I thought was sort of the most alarming, AB 576. Now, AB 576 has not yet been signed by Governor Newsom. What it would do is it allows Medi-Cal to reimburse doctors who prescribe the abortion pill off-label. Now, Medi-Cal, as I have learned from starting a nonprofit OBGYN clinic, Medi-Cal is very particular, and they don't want to reimburse you for absolutely everything. They're going to try and find ways not to reimburse you. And one of the kind of quality control things that they have to various degrees is against off-label prescriptions of certain kinds of things, okay? If you're using something off-label, does Medi-Cal want to reimburse you for that? Well, maybe not, okay? And that's the way in which FDA guidelines and regulations can have sort of enforcement effect. Basically, it's not compulsory, but you're not going to make a lot of money if you're doing an off-label prescription for something. So AB 576 is saying, to hell with that when it comes to abortion pills. So the abortion pill has certain guidelines around it from the FDA. When it was first approved by the FDA, you could only prescribe the abortion pill in the first 7 weeks of pregnancy. Then in 2016, they expanded it to the first 10 weeks of pregnancy. And basically, as people know from miscarriages, a miscarriage, the later on into pregnancy it is, the more difficult, the more dangerous, the more traumatic, the more healthcare complications can result from it. And that's effectively what the abortion pill is. It's kind of a drug-induced artificial miscarriage, more or less. So to prescribe the abortion pill, to administer the abortion pill later and later and later into pregnancy comes with more and more and more risk. So AB 576 would, for California anyway, it would render the FDA guidance around the abortion pill basically a dead letter. I mean, who cares? A huge percentage of abortion pill abortions are done on women who have Medi-Cal. So why it doesn't matter whether the FDA says it's 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And that's very relevant to some lawsuits that I'm going to mention in just a second here. Basically, this will give doctors total free rein to prescribe the abortion pill as far as they want. Now, this is highly relevant, I think, in two ways. One is that there's a federal lawsuit going on right now in the Northern District of Texas and in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals about the FDA approval for the abortion pill. And basically, it was a bunch of pro-life doctors arguing that the original FDA approval of the abortion pill was wrongly done. That basically the FDA inappropriately did not follow appropriate procedures,
Cut corners.
and that the whole approval of the abortion pill was unlawful.
Which, John, if I am going to humble brag, I will say.
Okay, well, you're doing a lot of that this episode.
I
Yes.
get very few opportunities. But
All right.
one of my most fond pro-life memories was from the very first time I ever went to Washington, D.C. As an 18-year-old high school student in January of 2001.
It was right after they had approved the abortion pill.
There was a group of us pro-life students from California. We were there for the March for Life and for George W. Bush's inauguration. We were there that week.
Yeah.
But the first day we were there, the inauguration was on, I think, Saturday the 20th. The March for Life was on Monday the 22nd. But on Friday, the 19th, January 19th, 2001, we protested outside of the Food and Drug Administration.
There you go.
Protesting the approval of RU46,
Right.
which, like you said, had just been done like months before.
Right, in September of 2000. Yeah. So
I'm an OG. I'm just
you're
saying.
an OG.
I'm just
Okay,
saying.
very good. All right. So AB 576, it would base now the lawsuit that's taking place. It seems like the outcomes are likely to be we're going to go back to the 2000 level regulations, or we're just going to allow the abortion pill to be prescribed at 10 weeks. So are we going to go back to the FDA guidance should be go back to only allowing the abortion pill at 7 weeks or all the way through 10 weeks? Well, AB 576 will make that discussion almost totally irrelevant for California. Even if they, frankly, I think even if, I'm not even sure if the entire FDA approval of the abortion pill is swept away, maybe it'll make that completely irrelevant. I'm not sure. But basically, AB 576 is opening the door to wildly horrific stuff. And of course, this is also related to access. And then this is how we'll kind of conclude for the day. They are obsessed with abortion access. One of the various laws that was passed this year is allowing physician assistants to perform abortion. I think abortion providers are desperate to get abortions to people any which way possible. It's why they want physician assistants to do abortions. It's why they want nurse practitioners to do abortions. It's why they're trying to pay, why they are paying in California for medical school loan forgiveness and scholarships for young doctors who want to do abortions. They are trying to artificially goose the number of providers willing to do abortions, expanding the pool of people who can do them, and expanding the availability of the abortion pill. Guess what? With the abortion pill, you just need a provider to prescribe it. They can prescribe it through a telemedicine visit. So you don't need a provider to actually do the abortion with the abortion pill. And that's their desperation, is they want abortion so bad that let's give people abortion pills beyond 10 weeks. Who cares? I mean, that's the attitude that the pro-abortion left has. So let's keep our eyes out for it. AB 1432, group health insurance plans to cover abortion. AB 576, is Governor Newsom going to sign them? We'll talk about LaFonza Butler next week. We're out of time for this week. But LaFonza Butler, basically it's like if a Republican governor nominated the head of the NRA to be a U.S. senator, only actually LaFonza Butler as head of Emily's List, which is the big pro-choice women politician fundraising entity. She's given way more money to Democrat candidates than the NRA has ever given to Democrat candidates. Let's put it that way. So
I think this is more about Gavin Newsom locking up his fundraising IOUs.
Yes.
For
I think
either 2028 or maybe 2024.
or maybe 2024.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think everything Newsom's doing is with an eye towards the 2024 and or 2028 elections. That'll do it for Right to Life Radio. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time right here on Power Talk.